Hey, happy day. I'm your wiser advisor and I got stuff for you. And here it comes. Power of the people and people in power. Two very conflicting terms, right? Two groups. The one group does not represent the other group. People in power should do what the people of power wants. People power, hey, I want this and you want that, and it's all different, but you got to use your power at the voting booth to clean up the dirt when the people in power need a power wash. Did you get that? People power. It's cool. We need it. People with power, they abuse it. People go to Ottawa, Canada. People go to London, England. People go to Washington, D.C. to change it. Politicians being those people. But those places change the people. Not always, but most always. Hey, just saying. Virginia, you got a guy there. I like him. He's a big, tall guy, I think, if I got my states right. I think he's about 6'5" or 6'6" or something. A giant man doing big things. I kind of like that because the former governor was a Democrat, and he said, we're going to be like California. We like California, so we're going to outlaw gas and diesel automobiles, and you can only have electric, right? And that's just dumb, of course, but that's what the law was. And now you got this new guy that says, that's stupid. He says, it's ridiculous. I'm going to dismantle this push towards electric vehicles because it's crazy. And the California Air Resource Board in California now has kind of been cloned, I guess, for Virginia. Was cloned by the former governor. And in an effort to turn Virginia into California, liberal politicians who previously ran our government sold Virginia out by subjecting Virginia drivers to California vehicle laws. This is what Youngkin wrote, Governor Youngkin. And he says, I am at work. He's working hard to prevent this ridiculous thing from being forced on Virginians. California laws are out of touch with humanity. That might be a little ad-lib on my part, but that's kind of more or less what he said. Guns, boomity boom, boom, boom. Guns and bad people. Bad people do bad things. They do it with guns. They do it with anything. Take the guns away, they'll keep on being bad. That's just the makeup, right? So New Orleans, they now have recently overtaken St. Louis, as a murder capital of America. I always thought it was Chicago. Chicago is way down on the list. I'm amazed. This goes in per 100,000 people, okay? So in Chicago, there's 18 homicides per 100,000 residents. New York City, there's 3.5. Amazingly low numbers. I would have thought they're a lot higher than that. Now swing back to New Orleans. It's a 141% increase just from last year. There are 52 homicides per 100,000 residents. 52 versus New York at 3.5. Wow, kind of makes it sound like a war zone, doesn't it? And that's amazing numbers, just sharing with you. What turns on that? I don't know that anything does. Just bad guys are being themselves. The good news is, maybe, good news, because we don't know that, it wasn't in those stats, maybe they're just shooting one another. Typically that is what they do. Bad guys shoot more bad guys than they do other people. They don't shoot a lot of good guys. So maybe that's not a bad thing. Hey, a federal appeals court in Texas recently said, hey, you guys, Twitter, Google, you can't do this anymore. Stop. YouTube, you're trying to curb censorship, right? We are, rather, because you have censorship, you want censorship, you want viewpoints and expressions limited and vetted by you, and we're not going to allow that anymore, and the court agreed. So good going. Now there'll be appeals, all kinds of things, because big tech, they don't want you to say what you want to say. They control that, and they're trying to control the makeup of the entire nation and to change it according to them. And it's not good. They have more power than elected people, and they're using that. And in Canada, the Trudeau government is saying, we're not going to allow you people to think anymore. We got thought police coming. And they have a bill called C1, and it's all about regulating and filtering what you say. And then, of course, they force feed their information to you. Hitler did this with radios, and it worked for him. And Trudeau's doing the same thing. It does have to get through the Senate, which is kind of interesting because typically they just stamp everything that the little commie leader says to stamp. Here, maybe not. A couple of senators are actually giving pushback. That's great news. We'll see what happens. I mean, freedom of expression. Free speech and free expression. Kind of a nice concept. I mean, I say this to people that I don't agree with anything they say. Some liberal wackos that I've encountered in my life, but I always say the same thing. I will always fight for your right to be wrong, for your right to say and believe what you want to believe. I don't agree with you, but I'll fight for that. And they in turn would say, that we will never fight for your rights because you have to do what we do. And you got the Trudeaus of the world that are up there doing that. And him and the California governor are kind of in the same bunk. Hey, the average Canadian family, in keeping with Trudeau talk, the Prime Minister of Canada, paid $35,000 in taxes in 2020. That's more than the average family spends on basic necessities like food and shelter and clothing combined. So when you have a country that's finally there, right? I mean, you pay more to the government to waste than you do to protect and feed and clothe your own family. What's wrong with that? Connect all of those dots. They're unconnectable. Hey, just say in Taiwan, I recently learned that older people, many older people, certainly not all, walk backwards to turn back time. Apparently I've not been, but apparently it's a common sight to see older people walking backwards to turn back time. Can that be right? I've asked several people now, because when I first heard it, I thought, what are you talking about? But they want to get younger. I'd like to turn back time politically and get rid of all these left-wing wacko people, but that's another day. Hey, you all come back here. We'll have more for you from the right sooner than later. Hey, see ya.